Hello everyone and welcome to a review of Dragonkeepers. This is a relatively new game from KOSMOS. It plays with 2 to 4 players and is aimed at 8+. The game takes around 20 minutes. The game was provided to me for this review. Let's jump into roughly how the game plays to give you a feel of it, and then I'll give you my pros and cons to let you know if it's a game you should add to your collection. Dragonkeepers is, as with many games, all about scoring points, and you're going to be doing that by playing sets of dragons down in front of you. But as the game goes on, you're going to be locked out of playing certain colours, and it's all about drawing from these piles that change what you can then play. The way an individual turn works is that you're going to be able to draw up to 3 cards. You must draw 1, but then you can choose if you want to continue and draw up to 3. You're going to choose from the left or the right pile, and then that will instantly be replaced. So you'll see the decks in the middle, with one side having a number on the back and the other side having a coloured dragon. You're going to take from just in front of that either of the 2 dragons and add that into your hand. Then it will refresh and you can go again, and you can decide to take one or the other or stop there. Then you're allowed to manipulate either side of the book. So you can play a numbered dragon back on top of the pile, you can play a dragon back on top of the right side, or you can do one onto each, manipulating what you're then able to do. So let's say the pile in the middle has on it 2 and blue. That means to be able to play cards in that round, you must be able to play 2 blue. But let's say you don't have any blue. Well, you might want to manipulate that middle so it says 2 green. Maybe you've got loads of blue, so maybe you manipulate it to say 4 blue. And different things like that. You could even manipulate it completely. So instead of saying 2 blue, it says 3 red. By playing cards from your hand back on top of those decks. Once you've manipulated it, you can do that action, and that will get you a little piece of an amulet. Maybe the lowest scoring one, maybe the highest scoring one, depending on how many of those dragons you are playing down. At the beginning of the game, you're just going to be playing the cards in front of you. Once you have a second colour dragon played, you've got 2, and then when you're playing a third coloured dragon, it's a bit of a choice, because you can only play to the outside piles. So if you have red dragons, white dragons, and then blue dragons, you can no longer play to your pile of white dragons anymore. You couldn't play what's in the middle, but you can on what is on either edge. And that gives you some choices and blocks off what you can and can't use. And as I alluded to, you're going to be wanting to play these dragons because that's getting you the amulet pieces that are scoring you points. Maybe even getting you dragon eggs, which could turn into just 4 points, or they could turn out to be 16 points, and things like that. Once you've done most of your turn, the drawing part, the manipulating part, and the playing part, everyone else around the table can have a look at the sort of thing on offer. So let's say you've left it at 3 red and you've played them. Everyone else, if they have 3 red dragons, can then try to play them, as long as it's not one of the colours they've blocked off themselves. After this, play moves clockwise around the table to the next player, who's going to be drawing up to 3 cards, potentially manipulating the top of the book and playing cards of their own. Unlike in most games where you go until one player has done a certain number of things, in this you actually go until cumulatively around the table you have a certain number. So let's say at 3 players you need to have done 8 of the amulet between all players. When this is triggered, you do finish that sort of turn off. So if you do it on your turn, sort of completing the 8th one, the other players around the table still get to try and do that sort of trade that you've done. So let's say you've ended it on playing 1 white dragon. Everyone else could still do that if the cards in their hand allow it. At the end of the game, you're going to get a load of points based on what you've done. The amulet pieces that you've taken, well, they gradually throughout the game get more valuable. Although you can play in certain ways, get the most valuable one just straight away. When you've got 3 amulet pieces, which completes an amulet, you get a little pearl that's added into the middle as bonus points, and they're counted up. Eggs are counted. Whoever's got the most eggs flips one over from 4 to 16 points, and there's other ways that you can get points as well. You add all of that up and you see who wins, and they have been the best Dragon Keeper. So hopefully that's given you a general flavour of how the game works, and it all revolves around that sort of book that's made in the middle that says on your turn you're going to be able to play 4 blue dragons, 3 green dragons, 1 white dragon, etc. And I like the fact that you can draw as many cards as you want. You can go for just drawing 1 and be happy with what the book says, or you can keep drawing up to those 3 each turn, and that's then potentially changed what's on the top of that book. You know, alright, it's got a good number, 3, but I'm not happy with the colour, so if I just keep drawing from the right side, it will change the colour. I'm still not happy. I then have that opportunity to manipulate, and, well, that gives you some real good options. You're not just luck of the draw. You can get lucky, but if you don't get what you want, you can manipulate it. So you've got a load of green dragons, you can manipulate that top to say you can play green dragons. That really helps it feel like you're never backed into a corner, and while you can get a little lucky with what the book says, you're always able, if you've got just a load of cards, to manipulate it to help you out and play stuff. Because it feels good when you play stuff. You know you're guaranteeing yourself some points because you're getting an amulet piece, maybe something else on top of that. And if you complete an amulet, it feels like an even bigger result because you've managed to complete an amulet, so you're getting points for the amulet piece, and you're getting a pearl to put into it as well. And it feels even good on other players' turns because it doesn't take too long for them to draw up to 3 cards. They're going to know roughly what they want to be playing from their hand and manipulating it, and maybe even you're able to play some cards on someone else's turn. Something that keeps you interested. Oh, they're having their turn, they're drawing cards, manipulating it, but you're also just keeping an eye on what they're leaving at the top there. What is that book showing? What are they playing? Can I do it as well? Because often, if you can get away with doing something like playing cards on someone else's turn, well, that means when it comes back round to you, you've almost had a little bonus turn in the middle of waiting for your turn to come around the table, which keeps you engaged, and I like that. I particularly like the artwork. When I opened the box and saw sort of the red dragons, the green dragons, I just expected every red dragon to look the same. They kind of do, but they're in different poses. One's slightly flapping, one's just sort of hunched over, sat there with some rocks in the background. And I like the fact that all of the dragons, yes, the red dragons, look the same, but they're in different poses. The card artwork is different. It's a really nice touch that I don't think needed to be done, but it does just make it a bit more pleasant as you turn over a red dragon. Oh, this one's in a slightly different pose and different things like that. And the 2 different piles, they match up really nicely to create sort of a bit of a vista almost in the middle of the table. They line up very nicely. So the graphic, like the way they've done the artwork there, just works really nice. I think it's quite an inviting look. It's not like a sort of scary dragon, but they're not too sort of comical either. They've got that nice balance where they're just sort of cool looking dragons. Player count wise, while you do need to go to slightly fewer amulets the more players that are playing, it does seem to take a little bit longer. And that's simply because it just goes around the table with those extra players, but it's also not massively longer. So it's 20 minutes on the box, and I think even your first game with say like 3 players, the middle of the 2 to 4 player count, I think you're probably looking at 25 minutes, and that's including teaching the game, which is pretty good by saying 20 minutes on the box, because once you're playing that second game or playing with only 2 players, you're going to hit that 20 minutes pretty consistently, and even be faster than it if you're only at 2. You might be thinking it does sound relatively simple, and it is. It's drawing cards, trying to effectively set collect a colour of dragon. There is a small module that's included in the box called the magical chests, and they do add a little bit to the experience. So for instance, when you do play one dragon, yeah, you get the lowest amulet piece, but you're also going to get one of these gemstones. You can always turn one of those gemstones in to take a 4th card on your turn, but by playing with the expansion, you can also spend them to do this special power that's only available in that game. Now that might mean you use it to just draw both cards that are on top of the decks. It can mean that when you play cards, you actually get some of them bounced back into your hand. So you dump 5 cards, well, most of them come back to you as well. Or it might just mean that when you're playing cards, you can spend fewer cards. So to play 4 red dragons, you actually only need 3 red dragons, and not even a wild dragon to top it up. You just need the 3. And I like that, and I think those powers are pretty cool. I think after a game, everyone's going to use them, and to be honest, we actually just started with them. Because they do make your turn feel bigger, drawing more cards or spending less of them to actually do that sort of playing cards action part of your turn. It just means you're often playing more stuff, gaining more stuff, and your turns just feel bigger and better as a result. So, Dragonkeepers is a fairly simple sort of game. You are drawing cards and sort of manipulating what then you can be playing. You're collecting sets of these colourful dragons to be able to play them down. You, as the game goes on, get more restrictions. Oh, you can only be playing the cards to your outside piles. You can no longer play green dragons. Well, I don't really want to draw the green dragons into my hand then. And different things like that. I like the fact there's that mini expansion sort of already in the box, because that does allow the game to grow with you, and you're certainly going to want to use it because the powers are cool and give you bigger, better turns than just drawing a few cards and maybe, hopefully, playing some. I also like the fact that you can sometimes be playing cards on other people's turns once they've decided this is how I've manipulated the deck, I'm playing cards like this. Well, other people around the table can do that sort of play as well. And it doesn't happen too often, but when it does, it at least has meant you're paying some attention when it's other players' turns. It's a relatively pleasant, lightweight sort of game, and I can see bringing it out when I've got people round that want to play a board game, but don't really play many. It's a good sort of gateway style game, good for families that's short, fun, and, well, full of dragons. Hopefully this review has helped you know if Dragonkeepers should be a keeper for your collection. Let me know in the comment section below if it has helped you make that sort of decision, and, well, until next time, have a dragon-filled good day. Not sure if that's going to be safe, but hopefully it would be fun.